Yo! Welcome to episode 45 of the See-Through Podcast, a podcast that creates transparency on disabilities and the champions with them. I'm the host, Lance Johnson, and I live, create, and podcast from Brooklyn, New York, with an inherited retinal disease called retinitis pigmentosa, or RP for short. If you're new to this podcast, thanks so much for giving it a chance. I know your time is valuable, and I truly thank you. Wow, when it comes to my guest today, we had so much in common. I can't wait for you to hear it. My guest today is Ben Fox. Ben is the co-founder of the Blind Dance Film Festival, which is the first festival ran by the blind for the world. We will definitely cover this more in depth in the episode, but Ben is also the founder of almostblind.org, an organization he created to increase awareness of the various degrees of blindness. In this episode, Ben and I talk about both of our filmmaking careers, where at one point Ben himself quit filmmaking altogether. We talk about life with retinitis pigmentosa, the wild story behind both of his retinas detaching, some amazing projects that he's cooking up currently, and more. And as a filmmaker myself, and one that is currently feeling quite uninspired by filmmaking, to be honest with you, this conversation was something I needed. So if you're a creative or filmmaker, you'll especially dig this episode. But before you hear my conversation with Ben, follow or subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're currently listening on. Also, make sure to follow the See-Through Podcast on social media. You can find me using the handle at See-Through-Pod. And that's all I have to say for this intro. Let's get to the real reason you're here. Here's episode 45 featuring my conversation with Ben Fox.
Mic check. Checkity check.
All right, we're rolling. What's up, Ben?
What's happening, Lance? Good to meet you, sir.
Yeah, I have to give a quick shout out to John Maron. He's always sending me a guest. It's kind of funny because he'll just text me out of nowhere and be like, "Hey, you should interview this guy. You should interview this person." And I'm like, "Oh, sweet." And he has really good suggestions. And in fact, you've been on my radar before he reached out to me, so it worked out well.
You know, Mr. Maron, he's a great connector. And the more I get to know him, the more I realize like he has a deep commitment to the community. And, different people have their different whys. But for him, he really cares. So I'm glad for a person like John, to introduce us. He really cares. So.
And for those listening, John Maron was a past guest on this podcast. So if you want to know his story, go listen to his episode. Ben. We have a lot to talk about, and I just wanted to make you aware that today is my birthday.
Really?
It is, yeah.
Happy birthday. And let me ask you, on your birthday today, are you making a wish in your heart, and are you going to carry that through this year?
You know what? Usually the wish comes along with a candle on a cake, and I don't have a candle on a cake this year, so maybe I will just have to make a wish up in my brain. I'll just have to make a thought of a wish. But yeah, that's a good point. I probably should. Are you a big birthday wisher? I'm
a big wisher all the time, every day, and I believe in special days. And a birthday, I believe, is a day that heaven itself looks down and says, "Oh, hey, they remember your name." So on this day, I'm happy that we're doing this podcast. I'll remember it.
Awesome. Yeah. I thought about not doing an interview on my birthday, but I was like, no, these interviews are fun. I was like, this would bring me joy on my birthday,
100%.
It's fulfilling. I get a lot out of these interviews. So just wanted you to know so we can spread that birthday energy back and forth,
I'm on it. I thought this is the Almost Blind pin, almostblind.org. I don't know if you can see that.
For those listening, Ben is... He's holding up his pen. He's wearing a pen on his shirt that says Almost Blind. And we're going to get into Almost Blind, but I don't want to get too far ahead at this point in time. So before we start talking into anything specific, let's just get a quick intro of you and who you are.
I'm Ben Fox. I am a filmmaker, and I'm actually the co-founder of the Blind Dance Film Festival. And what that is it's a passion for me to help the world see that there's a spectrum of blindness. And not just that, but I want the world to know that people that are blind have amazing skills. And I want to help normalize the tools that we use to get to work and thrive there and to get to play and have fun there. And while we're out telling stories, I want us to meet one another and meet each other's crews that we make films with. Because through storytelling, there is change that happens. All the greatest things in history have a story. I would say, though, with this intro, I gave up on filmmaking. When I was 18 years old, I had a short film in the Gen Y Theater, its first year in the Sundance Film Festival. And a couple months later, due to retinitis pigmentosa, I have very thin retinas, and they fell off on both of my eyes. And I had just had a short film in Sundance, Gen Y Theater specifically, and they told me to prepare for blindness. And I gave up on filmmaking, and I put my head in the sand, and I said, anything that needs your eyes, I'm going to just pretend I don't even have vision now. And I picked up the print journalism, like old school newspapers. I'm 38 years old, so this is 20 years ago. And that's right before all newspapers went online.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, I'm looking at the world again, and cameras talk today. And there's software to help people make films with their eyes closed. And now that I'm a little bit along in the journey, I realize there's a lot more to filmmaking than holding a camera. So I'm excited. That's what I'm up to in the world, making films with other folks, local to global, the world's first film festival by the blind for the world.
Yep, and that's the Blind Dance Film Festival. If you're listening and you want to learn more about the Blind Dance Film Festival, click the show description. I'll have a link there to blinddance.org. Yeah, and it kind of makes perfect sense why I'd want to interview you, because one, I have retinitis pigmentosa, the RP crew. You know what I'm saying?
RP crew.
And I went to film school, and I've made several short films. And my last short film did okay. It played in some film festivals. It was called Craving, and it was a short narrative film. And it won Best Short Comedy at the Longleaf Film Festival in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it won an Audience Choice Award at the Iron Mule Comedy Film Festival here in Brooklyn, which played at the Alamo Draft House here.
Wow, that's cool.
And I was very excited about that. But you know what? Filmmaking is a labor of love, is the best way to put it. A lot goes into it. Very collaborative. It's probably the most in-depth art form you can ever try to get involved with, because there's so many moving parts. You have sound, you have visuals, you have set decoration, you have post-production, you even have producing up front, time management, you have directing, you have casting, you have actors.
Which one of these can make or break everything.
Yeah, it goes on, and the list goes on and on and on. So filmmaking is hard as hell, man. It is a tough hobby to have, especially tough career to have. You have to truly be in it. And to hear you say, I had a film at 18 years old, get into Sundance, and then you quit. And that hits hard for me, because whenever I was younger and when I was deciding to go to film school, I had these thoughts in my mind, like, you know what, how long will I be able to do this? I didn't know. That's kind of the thing of RP. Sometimes it's like the unknown. You don't know if your vision's going to go away very quickly or very slowly.
Right.
Yeah, so it was a lot to take in, a lot to process. So I definitely want to explore that. You're 18, you have a film you made.
Yep.
And it gets into Sundance. For those who don't know, Sundance is pretty much, it might be the biggest film festival in the world, and a lot of careers get jump-started there. Mm-hmm. So can you talk about that film and then the process of making it, and then also to releasing it, and then your decision to quote-unquote retire from filmmaking?
100% I will. But then after that, I got to ask you about Craving, because I love that film.
All right.
By the way, I don't wish. I'm so glad I had no idea it was a comedy to start, because I pulled up, I checked it out. I saw anyway, dude, it's hilarious. It's
Thanks,
super
man.
good. I really love it. And I was going to ask you about it in a couple details, but
let's hear your story first, and then you can ask away.
The Craving, though, man, that was a good film. I dug it.
Thanks.
So,
man.
First I got to clarify one thing. It's important. I realize, in the business, it's really important. I had something in what was called the Gen Y theater, which is still a thing. It's only open to people who are 18 years old. So at the age of 18, in the very first year when they opened the Gen Y theater, I got in it. And it was awesome.
Amazing.
I was stoked. Siskel and Ebert watched all of our films. We had 2 premieres. We got a premiere in Salt Lake City, down the mountain, obviously, and then up the mountain in Park City during the festival itself. My parents were there. I don't think they realized that it was like a real deal until they were actually in Park City. And they're just like, it was very cool. So for me, at 18 years old, first of all, I want to, pay respects to people in my family that have also had vision loss. And the fact that at that age, at 18, and in my family, we didn't understand that there are 9 out of 10 people that have a white cane that have some vision still. Okay. We didn't understand almost blindness. My grandfather and my home and my aunt and uncles, everybody had adaptive aids everywhere, but we never spoke about blindness, and everybody drove way, way past the time they should have stopped. And so my point in telling you this whole thing is that when they told me at 18 years old to prepare for blindness, I was just like in my mind, it was such a heavy blow. I didn't put 2 and 2 together and realize, whoa, hold on. Like there's a whole gradual thing. And more than that, like I have a story with that gradual process, and my family has had this story, and it's interesting to the world, not the blindness part about it, but the thriving part with blindness. If it's filmmaking, it's filmmaking. For my grandfather, he worked on radar.
Okay.
He worked on radar, and he was going blind before the ADA.
Wow.
The Americans with Disabilities Acts, for folks that haven't heard that term, And today, if a person gets fired while they're going blind and their company didn't do whatever they needed to do to try to help them stay employed, it's against the law. And my grandfather grew up without that. And he always raised me to be careful who knows I'm blind, and you've got to really make do on your own and be ready to take care of yourself. And I realized filmmaking, rarely as a director are you going to find a salary and an insurance plan and steady work, month to month. And I'm going blind, and I come from a family that were very self-sufficient. And like, as my family's like, Ben, you can't be a filmmaker. You can't be a filmmaker. And I'm like, whoa. And I have these detached retinas in both of my eyes, and I'm having these surgeries. And the funny thing was, so when the film was out there, and it's like releasing a short film, that's like, it's not like it's on network TV and people are talking. It's not like that. There's this whole process.
Yeah.
And I just didn't understand that there could possibly be any kind of path for me as an 18-year-old kid going blind. And I'm trying to go on to sets and stuff like that. And I'm trying to go and with RP, I don't know if people understand, you can't necessarily go from light to light and have your eyes be the same. Your vision, it's going to change between lighting. And I'm a young guy trying to be cool around filmmakers. And I'm like, hold on, I'm tripping on everything. Wait, guys, I need 5 minutes for my eyes to adjust. And I know I could see fine just back there, and stop the show. I need to explain my vision. I didn't have any words at all. So, and then also there weren't people to talk to about it. Yeah. Yeah. And I wish that I could tell you at that time, I would have just kept strong. I wish I could tell you that I wish that my story had some triumph, you know what I'm saying? Of like, hey, okay, so blindness is happening now, but I'm still here with a camera in my hand. I can still edit my ass off, and I'll tell you, I have dropped cameras. And I'll tell you, I have accidentally, in, lighting changes and stuff like that, hey, especially not understanding, how my vision works and when it's going to change. And so I'll tell you, as a young person, I just gave up on filmmaking. I did. And wow, being back is one of the most amazing feelings I've ever had. So I'm really grateful.
Wow, man, you said a lot there that
Yeah.
resonated with me. And I know exactly what you're talking about when you're talking about light adjustments and then you're on set. And I used to, right now I am a video editor, and that's how I make my money, because I can sit at a desk and I can see my computer screen. It's nice. It's manageable for me. But before that, I was kind of a hybrid. I was like I guess you could say, videographer / editor, and I would go shoot little commercials or marketing videos, and then I would cut them, and then they would, for brands and whatnot. So I was behind a camera equal amounts behind a computer editing, and I just was getting slower, man, on set, just getting slower. I would be working with someone and they would say, hey, pass me that lens. And then I'm like looking around for it, and then I find it, and then I got to find where they are, and then I hold it out, and then they're like confused as to why I'm holding it not towards them, but like, not perfectly at them. Or they'll be like, here, Lance, take this piece of equipment. And then they're holding it out to me to hold it. And then I got to like find it wherever they're holding it. And then I take it from them. And then they're like, and going back to you talking about your grandfather working on radar before you ADA, I didn't tell any of my coworkers until I was like 27. I'm 31 years old today. As we talk about, today's my birthday. I got to keep bringing that up. But when I was 27, I finally told my coworkers. And up till that point, it was just me pretending. And I was pretty damn good at pretending. And it's a scary thing because, like you said, you were young. You wanted to be cool around these other cool young filmmakers.
Yeah.
You're on set. You want to just be able to maneuver around. You want to be able to just kind of, I have this idea. Let's just do it. We'll just quickly, we'll shoot it. But, with low vision sometimes, especially in those dark studio settings. Mm-hmm. And then also, not only are they dark studio settings, but they're giant. There's light sources that are very, very bright to contrast the dark. So you'll be looking at what you're shooting, which is very bright, and then you'll turn around and then it's pitch black, which is very, very hard for people with RP to adjust to. Would you agree with that? I mean, that's just
amen, brother.
Yeah,
100%. And it's like a landmine field as you're walking through, because there's cameras that are $5,000, $10,000, and the lights may be up high if you're lucky. They might be on tripods if you're not.
Yeah.
And there's extension cords everywhere, and there's monitors.
Yep.
And there's people being as quiet as they possibly can. So they're not letting you know. Wait, whoa. Yeah. You can't play Marco Polo either. Hey, where you at? Mm-mm.
Yeah, exactly.
I hear you, brother. Yeah. It's interesting hearing somebody else talk about it.
It's cool to, exactly. When you were talking, I was like, yes. Because, there's not many of us with RP in this specific industry. And, it has deterred me. Like, I literally did a career change. I went from being behind the camera, I was a one-man team. I would set up lights. I would set up 2 cameras on tripods. I would shoot interviews. I would run sound. I'd run lighting. And to basically, nope, I'm going to move to New York City. I'm going to take advantage of public transit. And I'm going to just be an editor, because in New York City, you can just be an editor. Like most of the nation kind of wants you to be this hybrid. They don't really let you specialize in one specific thing. Like you were talking about director, you're a film director. Like I have directed short films, but go on a job search engine and type in and type in film director and see what pops up. It's not, you'll find there's nothing that's going to pop up. Like being a film director is an incredibly hard position to get into. And it takes basically making films, continuously making films. And then eventually you'll get into it and but like, so in a sense, like I was making these short films I made on the side of my full-time work. And like I said earlier, is a labor of love. It's a lot. And I was a one-man team. You were talking about my short film, Craving. I was writer, producer, director, editor on that film. Mm-hmm. And it took basically 2 years of my life. Every weekend I'd be editing, So that Saturday, Sunday, at least 6 to 8 hours each of those days, because that's the only time I had to edit. And it hurt relationships because I didn't have much free time. It hurt my bank account because, it's not like I had a producer saying, hey man, I want to give you this money to throw at your film. No, I was self-funding it. And then at the end of the day, it was a very rewarding experience. I had this short film that I made. I'm proud of the product. It got into some festivals. It won some awards. But, it wore me out, man. It wore me out. And I haven't made a film since because I'm kind of like slowly recovering from that production process. And I kind of made this switch to podcasting because I'm interviewing you today and I could have your episode up Sunday, Mm-hmm. And I kind of like that aspect, where it's not all your eggs in one basket and it's not this like intricate process. And I would like to know your process on your ideas behind that.
Yeah. I got to ask you, because I hear you loud and clear on changing up from, well, first of all, major respect on creating an actual film that's a storyline with actors and they do a really good job acting and every freaking sound is like crisp and like the light. I mean, it's a real freaking powerful film too. I felt like, I'm just throw this out to get talk to Filmmaker. I felt that you're making some serious commentary on balanced lifestyles and actually living like the phrase living your truth actually is one of those things like, really, you're going to say living your truth. But I mean, like, you made a film without having to say the phrase. And you're like, that phrase, here's a film.
Yeah.
Being yourself, balance. Yeah, I dug it. I really did. And when I first watched it, like I really truly was assuming it was a guy with a serious drug addiction. And so I laughed my ass off because I didn't know it was a comedy. So it got me that way too. Yeah. That girl she's banging on the door at the baseball bat. I'm like, this is not going to go well for him. And the way you ended it, I dug that because like, who knows what happened? It could have, it's very cool.
Thanks,
Total
man.
Soprano ending. Yeah, I dug it.
And for those listening, Ben is talking about my short film. It's titled Craving. It's kind of this dark comedy about a commentary on addiction. But, I have this character who is being very secretive. He's hiding things from his partner. He's going to sketchy motels at night and you don't know what he's doing. And you assume that it's a drug addiction.
He does have a bandana covered in smiley faces that he puts on. I will say that at the motel room is the only place he puts on the bandana. So.
Yeah. And I can share a link to that. Actually, I'll put a link to my short film into the show description if you want to watch it. And basically, it's I won't spoil it. Actually, I won't spoil it. I never talk about my short films on this podcast, so it kind of feels weird, honestly, because I wonder if people listening to this even know that I have like made films. I know I talk about it here and there, but I kind of feel, I'll be honest with you, Ben, I feel like I'm losing my filmmaker identity.
Whoa! Oh! Dude, it's a real good thing we're talking, brother. Oh. Virtual fist bump, dude. Virtual fist bump.
Virtual fist bump.
Okay. So let me ask you this next question. I'm super curious. I could have checked it out just by looking at the dates. So lazy question. But which did you film first between Outer Space Life and Craving? And then second question, how did you like that documentary style? And man, that guy's story was great. I'm super curious what didn't make the final cut, quite frankly. So I'm all ears on this whole thing.
Okay. All right. Again, so Ben's asking me about my personal films that I've created. At some point, Ben, we're gonna have to talk about you.
Oh, brother, I know. I just
no,
I hear you.
It's fine. But you asked me about a documentary I made. It's called Outer Space Life, and that came first. That was the first project I did right out of college, and I've always enjoyed documentary filmmaking. It's actually my personal favorite form of filmmaking. It's what I watch documentaries more than I watch narratives, to be honest with you. And I think that's why I like podcasting, because I kind of treat these as like miniature documentaries. But yeah, Outer Space Life was a project I did right out of school. It was a documentary about this man named Jack Overby. He lived in Mount Airy, North Carolina. He's in his middle of his 80s. He lives alone in a small trailer in a small North Carolina town. And the thing about him was he had a pre-need gravestone For those who don't know what that is, it's a gravestone that is put in the ground prior to your actual death. So it's just kind of sitting there waiting for you, waiting for you to be buried. And it's right next to his mom's gravestone. On that gravestone, it said, Jack Overby has experiences with outer space life from age 5 throughout life. I think it said something a little different. It maybe had the year and whatnot, but that's essentially what it said. Had experiences with outer space life throughout his lifetime. And I saw that, he didn't have a death date on the gravestone. So I was
this is your first encounter of this man in any way.
Exactly.
You're physically in the yard.
Yeah, I'm in the graveyard. So I'm in that graveyard because the girl I was dating at the time, her family lived in Mount Airy, which is where he lived. And they hired landscapers to kind of landscape their yard. And that same landscaping crew does the graveyard. And her dad was just chatting it up. And then the landscaping guy was like, you have to see this gravestone. And I've always been into aliens. And like as a kid, I'd go to the public library and I would check out all the books about alien and Bigfoot and, aliens and Bigfoot and just kind of cryptic figures and conspiracies and kind of mythology. That's always been my thing. So
they call it mythology.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. So my girlfriend at the time, she knew that, and she basically was like, hey, I'm going to show you this gravestone. It's right up your alley. And it was. And I saw the gravestone. I saw it didn't have a death date. And it's kind of bizarre to think about it. I looked in the phone book.
You have the instincts of a journalist, brother, the heart of a journalist. You told me this. I'm like,
Yeah. So I looked in the phone book. I found Jack Overby, what was on the gravestone. There was only 2 of them in Mount Airy. I called the first number, and it worked, and it was Jack Overby. I was like, hey, do you have this gravestone? He said, yes, I do. And I said, well, I'm very interested in learning about your story. And he kind of gave me this like quick response about it. And I said, I would love to make a documentary about it. He was very, very excited because he had tried to get a lot of attention on this throughout his life, but no one ever wanted to listen. So he was very excited that someone was interested in his story. So long story short, I traveled to Mount Airy with some small group of friends, and I make this documentary. And what I thought was going to be a documentary about a man with a lot of experiences with alien visitation, it turns out it was a documentary, about mental health. And yeah, it gets like his story. That was a challenge, man. That film was a challenge because when I started that project, I wanted it to just be a project about aliens. I wanted to hear some interesting stories. And it turned out it was a much deeper story about potential child abuse and kind of the mental health issues that follow from that abuse and that kind of stuck around with Jack and his experiences throughout life. But yeah, it was a heavy doc, but I became very good friends with Jack Overby. And rest in peace, Jack. You're a great guy, but he has now passed away. But
Jack.
Yeah, that's another doc, and that was my first intro to of a film outside of school. Paying for it all out of pocket, and spending the time, editing it, and But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. And for those listening, I will have links to both my short films in the show description because, I never talk about this stuff. But yeah, I have made films, and I do describe myself as a filmmaker. I just haven't made one in a while. Yeah, it feels weird. It feels good / weird that you're talking to me about these. And the only reason I'm talking so much about them is because you kind of have to paint a picture for everyone, Yeah.
Oh, just so you know, I've really been looking forward to asking you those questions. I appreciate the opportunity. And as far as I could, think about the relevance of the time we just spent talking about those, we're talking about filmmaking for people that are blind. And that is really what my whole life is about. And really just the discussion that we just had literally is what I'm up to in the world. And at the Blind Dance Film Festival, we have a couple of slogans, and one of them is white canes, cameras, action, guide dogs welcome to.
I love it.
And there's got to be a little bit of fun when you're going blind and you're making films. There's going to be some fun moments, and they could be whatever kind of moments you want to choose them to be, depending on how you look at it. You knock a camera over, ours are insured. and it's fun. It's like, okay. And the other thing is that we have another slogan, and that's, you know, if you have a story, and if you're going blind or you are blind, you have a story that's interesting to a lot of people. And if you have a story and you have a cell phone with a camera on it and you have 5 minutes, you can be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And then really for me, fundamentally, when you said, you know, kind of like you're changing what you do, you know, you're sitting in the editing room. I have so much respect for that, because like you're staying true to the craft of filmmaking. As you told me about the depth of like, this is the, I think you might've said the deepest art form.
Most in-depth art form, man. It just requires the most people. Like, you know, I look at painters and I envy them. I'm like, wow, they can just sit. They have their supplies. And they just paint. And then I look at musicians. You know, you can be at your computer. You can record everything. But then it's like filmmaking. It's like take all the aspects of theater. You know, the stage production, acting, costumes, direction, and music, and all that. And then not only that, you have to throw in the technical aspect of cameras, audio gear, lights, and editing and sound design, and you know, some movies have visual effects and all these things. So it's just like so intense, man. It's like an art form that a lot of people take for granted. Like they'll watch a movie and be like, not know hundreds of people worked on it, you know, and take it for granted. But yeah, it's a very in-depth art form that requires so much hard work behind it.
I have a personal theory, and I'm really interested to see what you think on this. Like, if people worked on it, I feel like in people literally invested their life force to the art. And that's what I think really any given art is. And we could talk a little bit about what alchemy is and how alchemy applies to art in a second. But there are Aboriginal tribes and native tribes around the world that feel like if you're taking a picture, you're giving part of your soul to the picture. Yeah. I personally completely agree with that. And not only do I agree with it, but I've made peace with it. And more than that is we give our life force. I choose to believe that. Let me be clear. As we choose to give our life force, even now over this camera, I respect and celebrate the short nature of life. And when we look at films that we celebrated critically acclaimed films, it's because people gave their life force to them, and the audience can feel it.
You can feel it. Yeah. That's the biggest thing, man. And I think that's why I haven't made a film in a while, because I haven't been in a right mental space, you know, to throw all my attention at something, because that's what it requires. And you know, and right now it's this podcast. Right now I'm all in on this podcast. I do an episode a week. You know, I stay up late. I'm always trying to get guests on. You know, I'm prepping for the interviews. I'm interviewing. I'm editing the interviews, making the content. I'm trying to plan for the future of the podcast. You know, again, this is my new labor of love. I'm always busy with something, by the way. You know, there's never a moment where I'm not up to something. But I do plan to get back into filmmaking. I do. It's just I haven't been in that mindset yet since Craving to want to invest all that time, energy, and money into a project. And I feel like it's a mandatory that I should be in a specific mindset, kind of like we were talking about, dedicating yourself to it, or else it's going to show in the final product. Yeah,
it will. And it sounds to me like you're kind of storing up your Hadouken, right? That's a Star, not a Star Trek. It's a Street Fighter reference. Ryu, man. You know, he's stumming up a fireball. You got to charge up that fireball to let it out.
That's kind of what I'm doing, man. I'm recharging. You got to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
And you know, going back to you're 18. You have this big Sundance screening.
Little itty bitty short dance. Little short. Yeah.
And you have a short film. Your family goes. You know, it sounds like they were skeptical. You know, you were like, I want to be a filmmaker. I want to be a filmmaker. And they're like, I don't know. Like, maybe you should probably, you know, pick a career that's more in line with, that's more practical for your visual feel.
Oh, my goodness. They were not helpful. I love my family. They're helpful in so many ways, but not with filmmaking.
Yeah.
Like, it was almost like I would say something about making a film, and I would be like, did they hear me or not? I don't want to like repeat myself. And I would. And my dad like, yeah, I heard you. And I'm like, oh, well, are you excited? And he's like, well, son, I mean, yeah, I mean, how many movies do you think you'll be able to make in 10 years type of thing? And he's like, how does a pension work for that? And I'm like, oh, Dad, you don't get it. You don't get it. You know,
and I don't,
there's a writer.
And I have this weird thing where I don't blame people for thinking that way, because it is hard to wrap your mind around. And it's a personality thing too, you know. It's like, you're okay with not having a pension. I mean, obviously you would want a pension. Like if you had, if you could check the box, yeah, sure, I want a pension. I want a pension from my short film Craving. Sure, yeah, that would be great. I would check that box. But I knew going into Craving that it wasn't going to make me any money, and I still did it, you know. And there's a lot of freedom in that, you know, and that, and it sounds like you wanted, you know, that freedom, and that's what interests me about it. You wanted that freedom. You made a short film. It got into Sundance. Your family shows up to the screening. And then, like you said, you decided to quit. I'm interested about that. What made that decision?
Oh, well, we'll get real. So retinitis pigmentosa is the eye condition. Super thin retinas because of it. But when the first retina came off, I was 18 years old. I was out living on my own, working full time, trying to do films on the side.
And you're saying that your retina detached.
Yeah.
When you were 18.
On both of my eyes, by the way, but the left one first.
Okay.
And it's literally written down at the time. I don't know about now in Utah history books. They're like, this is the most significantly detached retina we've ever seen. It's like more than in half, like a taco. Right.
Wow.
And so they rushed me in to get a surgery. They put a gas bubble inside of my eye that holds the stitches on. And the doctor says to me, now, Ben, if you ever want to see out of this eye again, you need the retina to heal. And the stitches are holding the retina on. And we have the bubble, like, you know, if you have like a can of Pepsi and there's a little bubble at the top and you're going like this, the bubble moves around. And so if I go like this, my bubble is going to pull the retina off. So doc says you need to be in one position for 5 weeks. So I do, this is a back burner project that I'm doing over years, but it's called a film called One Room, 5 Weeks Sideways. So I went to stay in my old bedroom from when I was in high school with my dad. The doctor, he said to me and my dad's sitting there stone faced. The doctor says, I highly recommend that you use a bedpan and stay in that position so that the eye can heal properly. And my dad says, okay. And I said, no. And the doctor's like, if you get up more than once a day, I guarantee that the stitches are going to be pulled out. And he says, if you're getting up, all right, once a day to go to the bathroom. So listeners at home, I'll let you guys know, I was told by doctor's orders to pee in a bottle for that time, get up once a day to actually go to the bathroom. And that was a bonding experience for my family and me. And during that 5 weeks, like, why did I give up on filmmaking? During that 5 weeks, the doctors told me, like, you've got really thin retinas. You've got something else wrong with your eyes. We're really not sure what's going on. I'm taking 5 weeks off from my 3-year plan. And when at 18 years old, having a 3-year plan is pretty cool. I was like, oh, hey, by the time I was 21, I'm going to be a Hollywood filmmaker. Like the movie Fast and Furious had just come out. I was going to be driving one of those cars around Hollywood, just like they do in the movie Fast and Furious. Going blind had nothing to do with my future. You know what that's like, Lance?
I do, yeah.
That feeling?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to tell you, I decided, okay, when I get out of this, I'm going to go full throttle into Hollywood. I'm going to go full throttle. I'm going to make films. I'm going to call every freaking phone number of every business card I receive from every single person. Write a lot of thank you cards. I'm going to write a lot of thank you cards. I did. And then within a month or so, the retina came off of my right eye. And the bubble on my left eye, I had so much damage from being fallen off and the surgeries that I don't have any usable vision. So the 5 weeks, it just didn't achieve anything.
So you're saying that you had to lay down flat for 5 weeks straight, use a bedpan, couldn't get up because that would move the bubble. And then at the end of that 5 weeks, you're saying it didn't work. Correct.
Correct. Yeah. And
and then shortly after your other eye, your retina detached.
Yeah.
Dang, dude, that's 2 big blows right one after the other. I had one guest on in the past. Her name is Shiny, and she had that same surgery, man. She had to lay down.
Really?
And it didn't work for her either. And then they did this new kind of technique. I'm not even going to try to describe it, but they did this new technique and it did work. So I can send you that info if you're interested in it and learning about it. But yeah, it did. When you said that, I thought I would never hear that kind of story ever again in my life, because it's just you're laying flat, dude. That sounds really hard, mentally too. Like physically, it's gonna hurt it hurts to stay still for too long, and then mentally that you have all that anxiety pent up because your retina detached. You're afraid you're gonna lose your vision. So, okay, and now you're at the other eye, and now they're going to do the same procedure?
Thank goodness we got to the right eye, right, like literally as it started to detach, like, because they taught me what to look for. If this or that or this happens, if you see any extra floaters in your eye at all, come in. It's a precaution. If you see some weird sparks of light, even if you come in right away. If you have a black curtain that comes over any portion of your eye, you definitely have a detached retina. We need to operate. So I was in there like within the first few hours. And he's like, thank God you got here. I think we can save this eye. They were able to do a surgery. We didn't need many stitches because it had just barely come off. This is one of the most intense thing that's ever happened to me physically, though. For anybody that's read the book Dune or seen one of the movies, there's an instance where the main character is told to put his hand inside a box, and there's nothing inside this box. He's told there's nothing inside this box at all. You really won't have any physical harm, really, from what's inside of this box. But it's going to scare you like nothing's ever scared you before. It's the most terrifying thing in the world. Your brain is tricking you. And the characters, they said, but their fear is the mind killer. Walk through fear, and you're the only thing that's left. That's relevant because if I didn't read that book just before that, I think I would have punched the doctor and jumped out of this chair because I had to be awake for a procedure.
Yeah.
Where he said, you got two choices. One, we can put you under and do another gas bubble deal and all that and the whole thing. He said, or two, because you came in right away, if you can move your eye around and I tell you up and to the right, now down a little bit to the left, and I can laser surgery you while you're awake, we might be able to practice this new procedure. And so I got two completely different procedures between eyes, but it was the most intense pain I've ever had. And it lasted like 15 minutes. And my dad was sitting there holding my hand, like, and I'm squeezing his hand so hard. And the doctor couldn't put me under, couldn't give me anesthetic or anything because he's like, you need to be able to activate your eye muscles. He's like, it's going to be the most intense pain you'll likely ever have. And I had to sit through that. And then I was thinking about while it's happening, I was like, wow, I don't see out of my left eye. And I got a dude with a laser drilling into, it's like being at the freaking dentist, but he's drilling with the laser drill to my eye to reattach my retina. And thank God it stayed. And thank God I have still been able to see. I still have a tunnel of vision. I see you have a super cool microphone. You know, it's like I can still see, but I'm blind. And so now, why did I give up on filmmaking? I had no idea how much longer I'd be able to see. Nobody could explain low vision to me, legal blindness to me. I just thought I was going blind. And then when I went to talk to people like that are training people that are blind, like for their future careers, like career advice and stuff, and I told them I'm a filmmaker. Not I want to be a filmmaker. I am a filmmaker.
Yeah.
They looked, and I could see them through my tunnel of vision. They looked so freaking sad. And they told me, there's no possible way that the government or any of the special trainings for the blind are going to help you with that independent employment goal. And the IPE, the Independent Employment Initiative thing. Yeah. And I realized that they truly were sad. They weren't trying to be mean to me, by the way. These people are good people that care about the people sitting across from them. And they're just like, young man, like, pick another career. Anything else. They're showing me all these other cool options. And I'm like, but I'm a filmmaker. You guys don't understand it. It's like being a freaking bird and spreading your wings because you have a team of people and your camera's one wing, your lights and the microphone, like everybody, it's like you're soaring together. It's like you can make an event that has a bookmark in time and space forever, and people celebrate it with you every time you remember it. It's like asking an Olympic swimmer to never jump in a pool again. And I didn't understand. I truly felt like I was in some kind of alternate universe. And I vowed right then and there that not only will I continue to make films, but I'll make sure that other people that are in that situation in chairs like that on either side of the desk know that filmmaking is more than possible for people with their eyes closed. Period.
Yo, and I really respect that. And I respect that. And I think about that a lot as, a filmmaker with RP. I feel like I have this disadvantage, but I'm not really one to, I guess, like I have this disadvantage of RP, and that disadvantage right now is basically it's a mental disadvantage, because I'm like, I can't do this forever. So do I make that switch now, or do I make that switch later? And I'm kind of in this middle ground right now, because I still work as a video editor. It's like, do I keep that dream of being a filmmaker alive? Do I keep making films? Do I keep going in debt? Do I keep having no free time? Or do I, switch over to a new thing? And it sometimes, like, I don't know. It's like I that's kind of like you said. I'm kind of recharging. I feel like I'm also recharging, but I'm also like recalibrating what direction I want to go. Like I don't know. Like I don't know if I want to keep making films, and part of that stems from anxiety about longevity of making them. So I completely understand what you're talking about, and especially at that young of an age, you're very young, you're not even 20 yet, and you're kind of, thinking, all right, now you are listening to your parents' advice. You're like, all right, what's practical, and then that led you into journalism. So, which I also relate to, because it's still creative. You're still using those same creative muscles in your brain. You're still, telling stories. It's just a different medium. And I want to talk to you about that. So you switch mediums from filmmaking to journalism.
Yes.
Does it check all your boxes? Does it give you your filmmaking fix? Does it give you your filmmaking fix, making that transition, or is it just a Band-Aid solution? What was it?
Well, let's clarify for the time period that it was a special time in print journalism that no longer exists. So if people at home are thinking about journalism, the type of journalism I'm talking about is back when you'd hold a paper that folds and you unfold it, and the term above the fold, below the fold meant something on how relevant is your story. If it's above the fold, man, that's a good day for you. If it's below the fold, people might not even see it. So it's like terminology is different today. So it was such a Band-Aid, and it was a little bit ironic to go like, okay, I'm going blind, so I'm going to go into print journalism, because print journalism, I don't even need my eyes for. It's phone calls and sitting across desks, And then all of a sudden, print journalism as we know it goes away. And newspapers that traditionally had 100 employees, if they're still around, have 15. So it's like, it was interesting because, I felt like, I always felt like I myself was in a movie, running away from going blind. And it's like the tiles, the floor, right? Every step I take are just disappearing right after I stepped on. I'm like, whoo, I got a hot step, transitioning again. And so when I was in journalism specifically, what I learned that I loved to get the film fix is telling stories. Obviously, there's all types of journalism. You could be a crime beat or a city council beat or arts and entertainment beat. And if you're an arts and entertainment beat, you got to be really, really good, because a lot of people want to do that. So I brought all my filmmaking passion and fire and my zeal for talking to other artists, because when you're talking to artists about stuff that you both are into, it's something different. It's very different. And in the journalism world, wow. Like that's something there wasn't competition for that spot for the people that truly love the arts entertainment beat. It was just very natural, because here's why. Organically, the artists that were here the last time that worked with me have told someone else that's coming through, make sure you call and you're working with Ben when you go through this small little town, right? You know, he's going to write the story. And because of that, I couldn't help but pick up a camera again, because I met people in the arts entertainment business that found out that I have filmmaking chops. And next thing you know, I'm making music videos and I'm back into filmmaking. But I tried my best not to fall in love with filmmaking again, because I knew I could get my heart broken. And if I got my heart broken, oh my gosh, what would I do? I finally made peace at the storytelling. You know, I'm going out, I'm meeting people that are up on stage singing, or painters and different things, and telling their story. And by the way, I supplemented my income because you get paid by column inch depending on the thing, or you have to pick up extra stories. You can't always write about artists, musicians. Grand marshals of parades. And that's somebody who's like 75 or 80 and has lived and done amazing service for their whole life in a town. And now they get to sit at the front of the parade on the fire engine. I would go and talk to those people. And my very favorite story to like kind of answer, like, did I get my filmmaking fix? Oh my gosh, I love to write these stories, because people would call me and talk to me at the newspaper about how, like, I've known this woman her whole life and I didn't know that she had taught so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. They're famous now to play piano, and she never brags about it. And this woman that I'm thinking of in particular, I go to sit down with her, and I have heard all these wonderful stories about her, and she can't open up and give me her story because she's just so humble. And I find this thread of music. How did you meet so-and-so? And how did you meet so? Oh, well, I met them at such and such concert. I was a pianist, and I've traveled the world doing that. I'm like, well, there's the story. And then she retired to the small town and gave piano lessons for 65 years. She taught 4 generations of one family. There's the story. And in my heart, if you could read a story and it's a film in your mind and you feel it in your heart, and it was on a freaking pulp page of newspaper, yeah, I did get my filmmaking fix in that time. But something changed for me when everything went to like your phone and so fast. Because people, you could literally look and see that people aren't reading those types of stories nearly as much. But the people that did read them, felt them. I saw that, and I realized the power of documentary film, the possibility to go and really get my filmmaking fix, realizing that with the right crew, I could insulate my heart from ever being completely broken, and I could always be a blind guy making doc films. That's something that could always happen for me. And I almost dare to hope to make a movie like Craving. I have this little heart's desire to make a short film like Craving, like a real film with scripts, and like, you know, getting us, like, you know, going into a convenience store and having to close it down because I'm filming in there and it's not a documentary. Wow. So I did a little 5-minute thing just with my friends, and it was pretty freaking amazing, but we didn't really have a real script. It was kind of more like Curb Your Enthusiasm style, but it was really good and people dug it, and I'm just getting started. So that's kind of the transition back. And the last thing I'll tell you, it truly is hearing from other people that say what you've just said about different reasons for changing what you do in film, your passion for what you're still up to, and kind of like the wonder of what's next. It is that makes me know what I'm doing for the rest of my life, for sure. And I'm excited for Blind Dance Film Festival. I'm excited for other filmmakers that are blind. I'm excited to work with all of our crew.
Yeah, I'm super stoked that you have that film festival, and we're going to talk about that here shortly. So your transition from filmmaker to journalist gave you that fix, and I love hearing that, because I think that's very useful information. Because if you're listening, you have a visual impairment, you have a disability, you know, or you know someone with a visual impairment, and you know someone with a disability, this advice can go for along with anything. So it's like, you can be passionate about one thing, and because of your disability, it may affect how you maneuver around that passion, the procedures around that passion. But don't write off other avenues, you know? Like for you, you found journalism. You know, for me, I found podcasting. You know, it's like there's a whole world. If you have a creative brain, you have a technically minded brain, whatever you're into, you're an athlete, there are ways to adapt, and not only can you keep doing what you are passionate about, but there are other even art forms or avenues that you can go down and explore that may even give you the same feeling that thing you're initially passionate about will bring to you. You know, my only point is there's a lot of power in adaptability and just keeping on pursuing your passions. You don't feel like because you have XYZ that you're done. It's done. You know, you may be done at that moment. Like me, you can return to what you're passionate about. You know, you can take some time off to recharge. You know, you may take some time off to wrap your mind around it. But, you know, it goes back to that classic, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. And I'm not saying that it's not going to be hard. I'm not saying that it's not going to be a struggle. And I'm not saying that you're not going to face disappointments. But I'm just saying that it's worth knowing that you tried. And I just advise everyone out there to just don't feel like your disability or visual impairment is a death sentence to all your passions. You know, just have an open mind. Think about what else can I do that might check those boxes like we just talked about. And I think that you're a great example of that. And I'm super stoked that you're back into filmmaking too. And now we're going to get into, you know, the Blind Dance Film Festival, which is the film festival that you started, you're creator of. It's the mission of the Blind Dance Film Festival is to cultivate ground for growth and collaboration for those living with vision loss / blindness, while providing a platform to raise awareness of different types of blindness. And I think that's amazing what you're doing, because, you know, maybe my next film, whenever I'm recharged, you know, you're going to be top of the line. You know, you're going to be top of mind whenever I start submitting it and throwing it out there to places. So, yeah, can you tell everyone about this festival?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Blind Dance Film Festival has been a lot of fun to put together with a crew of other people that are blind and into filmmaking at some level. And there are actually some filmmakers out there right now that have made some serious motion picture films that are RP brothers. I don't know if you know that. Like Aaron Morse, for example, out of UK. He just did something with Billy Zane. So
I was not aware.
Yeah. I'll send you some links offline. So when I look at what the Blind Dance Film Festival is, by the way, it's actually officially our 501c legal license name is the Blind Dance Music and Film Festival.
Okay.
And it's really cool because in Gainesville, Florida, that's the venue that we're hosting our first ever actual festival. We've had screenings of films. We're a studio. We're helping people that are blind to make films. We have what's called the Working While Blind Film Crew, you know, all in the Blind Dance umbrella. But our very first actual 2-day event in Gainesville, Florida, that's the only place I've had a for-profit business. And I got to tell you, it was a lot of fun helping musicians in Gainesville, Florida, build the soundstage. I moved out and started my blindness training and stuff right as they're opening the soundstage. But right before that, I'm helping the musicians out in Florida build some really, really cool jazz scenes. I made a website for the jazz department of the University of Florida, and I made a website for their music department and marching bands while Tim Tebow was playing. And my point in telling you that is it felt amazing to go back to my old stomping grounds recently. And I haven't been there with a white cane in my hand.
Yeah.
And when I went back there, my old friends that are all these musicians go, whoa, Blind Dance Film Festival. Why not the Blind Dance Music and Film Festival? And that's how we added music. We went and changed it on our legal name and everything, because I actually have some friends that are blind that are musicians as well. And it's like, so all of a sudden we've got people that are of all different types of backgrounds and people that are blind working together to put this music and film festival together. All the sighted musicians are donating the proceeds of their time and their playing to the festival. It's amazing. And we have filmmakers that are sighted donating their time as well, doing workshops with us teaching people that have never made film. Like, cause it's like, hey, you want to make a film? I've got this great story, but I don't even know where to start. Right. Well, that's something that we are getting more and more into, is matching people up. Somebody that doesn't even have a story at all. But like, cause if somebody is legally blind, they have some sort of Social Security income and usually a lot of extra time on their hands. 75% of people that are blind are not working. Well, let's make films together, everybody. Let's go. That's what I have to say about that.
I love that. Yeah, and 75%, that's too high, I think. And I think, I love what you're doing there, and I think everyone should definitely click that show description, find the blindants.org link, click on that, check it out, especially if you're into filmmaking, or maybe you want to make a film, Don't be afraid to start. Like you said earlier, iPhone, everyone has an HD camera in their pocket these days. Mm-hmm. You can edit on that same device. You can edit on your laptop. Don't be afraid to start, Don't be afraid to start. Yeah, it's inspiring to hear. And man, it's getting me kind of riled up, It's getting me kind of all right, okay. Because like I said, man, I've been kind of losing that filmmaker identity. I think it's a tough thing to navigate for me, but this conversation is kind of rejuvenating me.
I'm going to be up in your neck of the woods later this weekend doing an event called Surfing for Vision. That's where we have 4 projects that we're doing this year.
Okay.
One of them is with the Visual Experience Foundation, which is based out of New Jersey, New York area. And they take people of various degrees of vision, but you have to be legally blind, to adventures. One of the ones they do every year is a surfing event for the whole family. They've got jet skis and surfing lessons for anybody of any vision. But if you're blind, you can have a pro surfer that guarantees to help get you on that board. In fact, they'll ride on the back of the board and help you stand up and make sure that you're safe. And so we have 50 surfers that come out every year. It's amazing. So this year I will be there making a documentary film about all the events they do. They also take people that are blind in a helicopter with the doors off to Niagara Falls. You can feel the mist coming in. It's pretty amazing what this foundation does.
Wow.
But then what I'm most excited about, though.
Okay.
Next month, I don't know if you know, the American Foundation for the Blind is 100 years old.
Wow.
This year.
100 years. Big milestone there.
Yep. And they started in New York City. And Helen Keller was their very first ambassador. She worked for them for almost 40 years. And next month, on September 23rd, we're coming together to the Tribeca building, and we're opening a time capsule. The last person to touch this time capsule and close it and put items in it was Helen Keller.
No
She
way.
put a personal letter in. Yes.
You're filming that?
I'm filming that for part of my Working While Blind series.
Okay.
And I'm very excited to tell you, I know that it's getting like, wait, you're adding one more thing to this? But so the Working While Blind series is pretty much a behind the scenes, like documentary film of making of everything that Blind Dance does. We just piece it together. It's very interesting to see like how people are blind make films and put it together. But what we're really coming to film is a feature film called Braille on the Streets, featuring the international Braille artist Clark Reynolds, who is the Blind Dance artist in residence. We're flying him in from London. It's his first time to the States. It's his first international Braille art tour. He just finished his first solo Braille art show in London. They had a whole gallery to himself. And the September 22nd, the day before this 100-year anniversary, the AFB slogan is no limits. So it's very small, no limits. We're going to take that slogan, no limits, and the international Braille artist Clark Reynolds is going to go up in a helicopter above New York City, and I'm going to be with him filming on the ground the world's largest ever chalk Braille art display, chalk Braille art display on the streets of New York City. And it's going to say no limits, which is the American Foundation for the Blind's slogan. And then we're going to take him the next day to that party.
Amazing, man. Yeah. You got some really cool projects coming up. And
I'm stoked about that, brother.
Yeah. It's cool to hear you'll be up here too. Maybe we'll link up, man.
I was going to ask you, after this interview especially, it'd be awesome if you want to come out with a camera in your hand. We got a camera you can hold. With ours, you could come out, but it'd be great if you want to come and make this film with us, at least be out there for the time we're filming.
Yeah, for sure.
Just saying.
For sure, man. For sure. Amazing, man. Yeah, you have a lot of cool shit going on, and your story is very, very cool to hear, and there's a lot of overlap between me and you, and I think we'll have to keep this conversation going. We'll have to keep continuing this one, because we didn't even really talk about, for example, you started Almost Blind, which is another organization.
Yes. Yep.
And Almost Blind is an organization that you made to help increase awareness of various degrees of blindness. Because, and I'll let you quickly, because I think people should hear about that. Can you kind of give a quick descriptor of Almost Blind?
Yes, sir. Thank you. This one's close to my heart, because obviously you and I, we share this, and as I tell you this, I'm certain you've had experiences like this, and anybody in our Almost Blind family has. So Almost Blind, it's not a description of me. It's the two quickest words that I can find when I collide inevitably with people out in the world to say, I'm glad I ran into you. I'm almost blind. And yes, I can see your smile. Hey, good to see you. I look hard to see you smile. So, hey, and I've got my white cane in my hand and I'm legally blind. And by the way, and if I'm still talking to the person, if there's any questions from there, I always wear a pin no matter what. And I'll just see, check out the website, almostblind.org. I have shirts, I have hats. And the way the whole thing started is the very first time I ever took my white cane out in my hand for the first time. And I'm legally blind. I had the white cane by myself without a white cane instructor, like other blind crew or out in a group. The first time I went by myself with a friend, but someone who's not blind, and we go on the train. And the longest story, really short, it's completely full. And a man who is very nice, he was sitting in the people who have a disability seating. And he gets up and he goes, here, sit down. I go, no, it's okay. He goes, no, sit down. I go, all right, thanks. I take the seat. I get a text message. I check the text message with my tunnel of vision. I'm having a great time. I just went and had dinner. I went shopping, got some cool stuff. I've got my white cane. I'm on my way home. And this guy across that's now standing with his friends goes, the guy's not blind. I just edited the F word. I go, but I didn't actually say the word, viewers at home, in case you said, what was that word? I edited it out. But he goes, this guy's not effing blind. And I go, and then I kind of heard people whispering back and forth. Through my tunnel of vision, I am seeing what were nice, curious looks, now like pretty angry looks, and they're all directed towards me. And I got up and I got off at the very next stop. And people were like mad dogging me the whole freaking time and commenting. And, I worked in newspaper. While I worked there, I learned some basic graphic design skills that I can still use with my tunnel vision and website skills. And I know how to do some basic marketing. And I went home right away. And as I'm walking home, I was like, I'm almost blind, not all the way blind. I'm almost blind. I wish I could have just told those people I'm almost blind. And I made a shirt, hat, website, almostblind.org. And I started going around all over the country. I will tell you guys, like, it's not cheap to do that. And I didn't get paid. I just want you guys to know I'm not trying to get paid for these shirts at all. I've never accepted $1 for them. And I give them away to the best of my ability and bank account, because I have to tell you, and I'm not trying to do this philanthropically. It's like for my own reasons. Because when I see you across the room and I get over there with my white cane and maybe knock some stuff over on the way, it was a lot of work for me and my friends that have almost blind eye conditions. And it's like, we really, really, really want to be out there still. And the last thing I'll tell you is guys like me and women and just different people, I'm not trying to say guys, but I'm a guy. I was isolated and I didn't need to be. And I even had enough vision to go out and do stuff. But what I didn't have was the language to explain how I can see you, but I'm blind. I just didn't have that language. And when I heard from other people, they're that same way, I kind of took it upon myself, like a little, like, oh, I knight myself the almost blind advocate, whatever. But I did. And, I just still have been. And like, for me, I will always hand in hand make films and advocate for almost blind situations. But until there's other people advocating really well for almost blindness scenarios in people's lives, I'm going to have that be on the front burner. It's just that important. And blind dance is part of that.
Yeah, they're all linked together. And yeah, that story makes total sense. And, as I'm not legally blind, I do not use a cane. I had bought a cane, and I plan to take some O&M training this year. I'm just kind of navigating moving at the moment. But yeah, so basically I've ran into people in New York City. There's lots of people in New York City, so it's inevitable even without a visual impairment that you're going to run into someone. But I run into people more than the average person, and luckily it works for me because you are in New York City. You kind of expect every now and then someone bump into you. So I'll just be like, oh, so sorry, didn't see you. And most of the time, but I've had a few people, they just look at me like, yo, how did you not see me? Like, there's no one else in the subway station. It's like a dead subway station where there's like two people waiting for the train. And somehow I ran into them. I walked right into them. And they almost think that I'm like messing with them, or like, and it's reasonable because one, I don't have a white cane with me. So I don't have any identifier, I don't have like an identifier of the cane. And I can try to explain it, but, I can say I have RP or, and they're like, what, you got to go on this long explanation about retinitis pigmentosa. It affects your peripheral vision. And, no one really wants to hear that, nor do they care to. And so my long story short, almost blind is a great descriptor, and paired with your cane seems to me like it'd be a very effective phrase. All right, I have my cane, and so, and, oh, I'm almost blind. Sorry, I didn't see you. That seems very, very, very good descriptor. Oh, it's so simple, but it sounds so effective. And I'm gonna steal that once I'm out there with my cane. I'm gonna steal that, and
I got a shirt for you. I got a pin for you, and we can put a sticker down the cane that says almostblind.org. If anybody ever says anything to you, the last thing that they'll say when you check out the website is like, "Oh, yes, I will. Thank you."
Yeah.
Ever since I've been able to say that, my whole world has been different, more open. It feels like, at least to me.
Yeah, and there's a statistic on your website, Almost Blind, about the percentage of people who are legally blind or blind, and it's about what percentage of those people still have visual acuity and can still see something, whether it's lights, or a small tunnel vision like people with RP have. Can you talk about that really quickly?
Sure. 9 out of 10 people that you see, 90% of people with a white cane still have at least enough vision. If you walked across a brightly lit window, they would see your shape move across the window. Some people that are blind, depending on the type of blindness you have, like for people with retinitis pigmentosa, through a small tunnel of vision, many of us can still read 12-point font if it's on the right lighting. I mean, it's like, how does a person who's blind, but it's like that same person, if you imagined yourself looking through a straw, close one eye, look through a straw, and try to walk around. It's like earlier, Lance, you said if someone's handing you a piece of equipment, you've got to locate where their hand holding the equipment is. And if it's a $5,000 camera, do they still want to hand it to the guy that couldn't find their hand with the camera in it to walk across the room full of other equipment? It changes the game. Being almost blind does come with an explanation, and the framework, it's people do care. And I used to lament, I choose that word purposely. I lamented that people didn't care, I thought, in the past. The truth is the world is freaking so complicated with so many data points, and we all fundamentally want to care. Even the most callous people I know want to care. And it's like sometimes apathy sets in because we think that caring is going to be so complicated that it's time-wise impossible to care about everything. And so some people just turn that part of their brain, on back burner to care about things. So my last thing on that is giving people a framework, whether it's like this is almost blind, or another way to describe in a succinct way that takes less than a minute why I need a little bit of your time and attention, and it's only a minute. Some people feel really good about giving that minute, and they walk around. And I'll tell you, people that I've met that already know about almost blindness, they smile, and I can see through my tunnel that little head nod. They go, yes, I've heard about almost blindness before. Yeah, I have a cousin or a friend, or I met someone on a plane. They explained it to me, and we have a bond like that. It's like there's some secret that only we know about on a plane, and we're looking around and this guy knows about almost blindness. I know about almost blindness. We got the secret handshake. Like, what's going on, everybody? You know, and I'm providing that moment. Other people at the shirt, we're providing that moment by taking just a minute in the framework. People do care. They do. Yeah, people do care. And I loved your explanation of apathy. I've never heard it be described that way, and I'm gonna have to think about that one deeper. But it makes sense. But Ben, we're having such a great conversation. I hate to cut it short, but I try to keep these episodes, you know, in that hour mark, and right now we're sitting at an hour 18. But hey, that's what happens sometimes. It's all good. But I can't let this episode end without me asking you about a nonprofit or charity or some sort of organization that you want to kind of hype up and give a shout out to that you think helps the disability community or visually impaired community. And I know we've talked about your organizations, which is the Blind Dance Film Festival, almostblind.org. And for those listening, click the show description. Again, I'm going to have links there. You can explore those websites. And dude, feel free to, if you want to hype those organizations up more, go for it. I support it. But the floor is yours now. I appreciate that you do this at every show. I think it's such a cool thing to give time, to take a minute to nonprofit it up. So exactly. This year is 100 years of the American Foundation for the Blind. Major shout out to the president and CEO, Kirk Adams. You are out there paving the way, then leading us back. Like, he's circling back after he paves the whole way to pick up the team. And then we're all falling down that path with him. So if anybody's looking for an organization to support this year, the American Foundation for the Blind has been given some matching grants. Some very, very generous matching grants. And this is the year to really take it to the next level. Please, AFB.org, everybody. AFB.org, American Foundation of the Blind, in their 100th year.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you got that cool event coming up with them here in New York. Ooh. So I'm stoked awesome. to see that video. Ben, man, that wraps up this conversation. And it was nice to kind of talk about myself a little bit. You know,
I was glad for that, brother.
Felt
I was
a little
very
weird
glad for that.
But you know, yeah, it feels a little weird to talk about myself. But hey, sometimes it happens. But that does it for this episode, Ben. Thanks so much for talking with me. You said amazing things, and everyone listening, I'm pretty sure will agree with me. So thanks again for your time. Thank you for this opportunity and for the good work you're doing in the blindness community and worldwide. Cheers. Cheers. And that does it for episode 45. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with the lovely Ben Fox. What a cool dude. And I got a lot out of that conversation. I did. But before you go, and I guess only if you enjoyed what you heard, well, I guess if you're listening to the outro, you must have liked the episode. But if you liked what you heard, make sure to follow or subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you are listening on. And you can also find this podcast on social media. The handle is @SeeThroughPod. And if you want to look up some of the organizations Ben is a part of, just click the show description. I'll have a few helpful links there. And until next episode, stay transparent, everyone.